Welcome everyone to this channel where I will be sharing episode reviews of that 1960s television show that I enjoy so much, Lost in Space. I encourage you to like and subscribe so that you don't miss each new installment as I work my way through all 83 episodes of this wonderful series. Before getting to any of those episode reviews, let me first take a moment to describe what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, along with a few other details. Back in the olden days of the internet, by which I mean the late 1980s, long before apps such as Facebook, people would seek out independent user groups, online forums, or sometimes Yahoo groups to share thoughts on mutual interests. Over the years, I joined a few of these groups that were dedicated to the 1960s TV show Lost in Space, of which I am such a fan. There, a couple of members posted detailed episode reviews, sharing their perspective on each, one at a time. Amused by how fans' opinions of episodes differed so greatly, as well as their reasons for such differing opinions, I endeavored to gather my own thoughts and share them in those forums as well, really enjoying that exchange of perspectives. Over the years, these forums have essentially disappeared. Happily, I long ago compiled my own reviews into a single Word document. Having looked them over not long ago, I thought it might be fun to share them again and rekindle that exchange of opinions on each episode. That said, apps like Facebook aren't a good medium to do something that is such a long format as these reviews. Instead, I've decided to create videos dedicated to each one of the show's 83 episodes and share them here on YouTube, where viewers can once again engage in that dialogue by leaving comments about what they like about this episode but not that, where we agree or disagree, and why. As far as my approach to doing this, I will begin each video with a brief synopsis of an episode and then go through a more detailed examination of the story, while highlighting what it is that I enjoy most about each one, elements that make an episode a standout, in my opinion. I will likewise touch on those elements that I consider to be minuses or misses of each episode, or at the very least what I think could have possibly been done differently to make an episode better. Typically, I will wrap up my review with a quote that I pull from the show that I find particularly interesting, amusing, or poignant. Finally, I will grade and rank each episode. By grading, I mean assessing a letter grade to each ranging from A+ to F. Now, I need to be very clear that I am grading these episodes based only on how much I do or do not enjoy an episode. Lost in Space went through a rather dramatic transformation over its 3 seasons. There was, of course, the serious sci-fi adventure of Season 1, and that gave way to more camp and comedy over the course of Seasons 2 and 3. Many fans love the serious space adventure of Season 1 but hate the camp and comedy that came later. Some fans go completely the other way. I love them all. Now, to be clear, there are some episodes that even I struggle to enjoy, but I have no specific preference when it comes to serious versus comedy or camp. So translating that back to my approach on grading, like most fans, I love the serious episodes like The Reluctant Stowaway or There Were Giants in the Earth. But I also love some of the crazier episodes like Promised Planet or 2 Weeks in Space. There is no meaningful way for me to compare 2 Weeks in Space to Reluctant Stowaway from a quality perspective. All I can do is simply indicate how much I do or do not enjoy one episode relative to another based on my own tastes. So that is the sole measure by which I will be grading these episodes. Of course, your mileage may vary. I have also attempted to rank these episodes both by season and across the entire series. This is challenging for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that my opinion of each episode tends to change over time. For instance, as I have aged, I've become much more generous with some of the sillier camp episodes, finding a new charm in them over time. Aside from that variability, trying to determine which episode ranks 10th versus 11th, or 46th versus 48th out of a total of 83 is a pretty tenuous exercise. All I can say when it comes to my rankings is that this is what I thought of each show at the time of this writing. Having already recorded my reviews for the first couple of episodes, Let me go ahead and say what any fan already knows. The first 5 episodes are spectacular. Those aside, I have to say my favorite period of the series might be the early to mid portion of the first season, let's say from Welcome Stranger through to His Majesty Smith. Even though Smith had certainly become a bit more comedic by that time, he remains dangerously evil, highly manipulative, but also still smart, sophisticated, and cultured. Likewise, even the robot had begun to acquire some of his human qualities over this period, but he was still very robotic and utilitarian, remaining quite believable as a robot. For that matter, John is still believable as the leader of this expedition. Maureen is still believable as the mother of the family. Don is still believable as a pilot, Will believable as a boy genius, and so on. Also during that time in the series, we still have the Robinsons struggling to explore and scratch out an existence on this alien planet. All of the things I've just described will lessen over time. While there are some fun episodes scattered about the show's 3-year run, for me, this spot in the early to middle first season is the most fun. After being stranded on pre-planners for much of season 1, it is exciting to see the Jupiter back up into space with the first episode of season 2. After just a few episodes in space, there's another crash landing, and Lost in Space soon begins to move into that camp direction. Some love it, and some hate it. I probably do a little bit of both. Amidst all of that camp and comedy, there are still some magnificent space adventures and such high-quality episodes as Cave of the Wizards and The Colonists. In some instances, because of the camp and comedy, there's still some very fun episodes. While Season 2 certainly has some clunkers, it can be said that the writing and performances across all of this season still remain very strong. Like Season 2, Season 3 also begins with a liftoff and some new space adventures. Over the course of this final season, though, at least in my opinion, the quality of writing and even the performances begin to deteriorate, and that slide tends to accelerate as the final season carries on. One of the biggest problems is that these characters no longer seem like themselves. During the Reluctant Stowaway, we're told that the Robinsons were selected for this mission from millions of volunteers based on their scientific achievement, emotional stability, and pioneer resourcefulness. During the series' second episode, The Derelict, John checks in on Penny and we see her listening to Shakespeare. Will is tinkering with an electronic device, working through calculations on their position. Even Judy talks about being able to rattle off the names of galaxies by sight. By Season 3, however, the entire cast is portrayed as rather ordinary, if not even a bit unintelligent. People who would never have been selected for such a mission. Even Smith transforms from that evil and cultured genius to a rather whiny man-child. Understandably, we can't have Smith trying to murder the Robinsons every week, but it's a shame that he no longer seems quite as sophisticated as he was earlier in the series. Like Season 2, though, Season 3 has some wonderful episodes sprinkled about, but there could have been so many more if only the writing was of a higher quality and the cast still able to portray the more credible characters they originally created. Here, let me insert a couple of assumptions that I am making about the viewers of these reviews. Much like was the case with those BBSs and Yahoo groups so many years ago, I will assume that I'm speaking to people who are already fans of the show, such that when I reference titles like There Were Giants in the Earth or Mutiny in Space, you already have some familiarity with those episodes and know about that which I am speaking. Additionally, each review will almost certainly contain spoilers, but again with that assumption that you are already at least a little familiar with this series and have probably already watched these episodes, I'm not going to specifically call out and warn about any spoilers. Finally, let me share a few insights about me and my love for the show. I'll start by saying that I am indeed a true fan. I was 6 years old when Lost in Space premiered in 1965 and was instantly hooked. Back then, there was nothing else like it on TV. It was truly spectacular. Now, it needs to be said that I recall also being a huge fan of Batman when that show premiered just a few months later at the same time on a different channel. My brother and I certainly watched that too. Indeed, we would put on our Batman and Robin costumes and play act along with the show. So, back in the days of a family having only one TV, and decades before home VCRs came into existence, my younger brother and I would sometimes watch Batman for the first 30 minutes and then switch over to Lost in Space for the second 30. Or depending on what the episode description was in the TV guide, we might instead watch Lost in Space for the full 60 minutes and miss Batman entirely. Very big decisions indeed for a couple of small boys growing up in the Bronx back in the 1960s. Well into the 1970s, I remember feeling like we were the last family in the world to finally get a color TV. So not until many years after they first aired was I able to enjoy the brilliant colors of Season 2 and 3, and I once again found myself marveling at this amazing show. As I grew into adulthood, and my time came to be consumed by education, career, raising a family, Lost in Space sort of fell off my radar. One day in the late 90s, I was home with a flu and feeling terrible, so I set myself up on the couch to watch some TV. Old reruns of Lost in Space were running on the Sci-Fi Channel. Seeing it again for the first time in many years felt like reconnecting with an old friend. My familiarity, nostalgia, and love for the show wrapped around me like a warm blanket. With the coming 30th anniversary of the show at that time, I was excited to hear a Lost in Space movie was under development, and it was leading to a resurgence of interest in the original show along with newly licensed toys associated with the original series, all of which further re-energized my nostalgic love for this show. As the Sci-Fi Channel was running Lost in Space during the day, I began taping the shows while at work. Then I, along with my young sons, would watch them together in the evening. Along the way, I picked up a Lost in Space trivia book off of eBay, and together we would enjoy quizzing ourselves after each episode. My sons and I further delighted in spotting the show's many bloopers, some of which were detailed in that book. Together, we would talk through the themes of each show, especially those with a strong moral message like Wish Upon a Star or All That Glitters. Back then, this was a real joy of mine. I loved listening to my young sons' perspectives on these themes, along with their general thoughts and opinions on each episode. I have a lifetime of cherished memories raising my boys, and among them is this time we spent together enjoying Lost in Space. I'm sure it is the same for them as well. Indeed, as young adults, they both remain fans, well, at least a little bit. More than a decade later, this is yet another layer of nostalgia that only adds to my love for the show. I have attended a few sci-fi conventions over the years and have met many of the cast. Photos of me and my sons with Bill Mumy and Jonathan Harris are among my favorite possessions. I never fail to recall how gracious Jonathan was to all of us when taking our photo. After a sci-fi convention over the weekend near my home, I needed to fly out for business the following Monday morning, and found myself aboard an airplane in the very seat behind Marta Kristen, who played Judy Robinson, as she flew home from that convention. I didn't have the nerve to disturb her, but she certainly must have noticed the Lost in Space book I was reading on the flight. Indeed, over the years since rediscovering the show, I have acquired quite an extensive library of Lost in Space books. Back in the early 90s, I picked up a CD of Lost in Space PC utilities that came out about the time of the show's 25th anniversary. Among other bits of fun, it included sound files to associate with Windows error messages. These files were often lines of dialogue from the show, like Dr. Smith declaring,
"I am a scientist, not a menial mechanic."
Or Smith insulting the robot by declaring,
"You are a goose."
Hearing the computer repeat these phrases over and over again, my boys and I became very familiar with those lines. As we would watch the series together, we'd all delight in catching those phrases as they occurred during the show and racing to be the first one to call out, "Computer," once we heard one. To this day, decades later, with my now adult sons long off on their own, whenever I watch the show by myself and hear one of those lines, I inevitably call out silently, "Computer," as I remember my boys and that fun time together. I truly love the show, and as much as I'm a fan, I enjoy being a fan. Indeed, let me pause here to share a bit about my Lost in Space toys and collectibles. As a kid, we had all the toys. This is me Christmas 1966 with my brand new Remco Lost in Space robot. Somewhere, I even have a home movie that my dad took of us playing with it. I took one of those gold coin pieces of chocolate that we all used to get in our Christmas stocking and put it in the robot's claws, sending him off to deliver it to my brother. We also had the Remco laser gun that was so cool to play with. One of the greatest Lost in Space toys was a Sears exclusive Switch and Go set. It was a fantastic toy, but for the fact that the Jupiter 2 was made of styrofoam. As you can imagine, a styrofoam toy doesn't last too long when played with by a couple of young boys. We actually had it for quite a few years, always taping it back together with packing tape before finally giving up. As an adult, I enjoy having these toys and collectibles, building the models, and so on. I even have a robot decal on one car and a vanity Jupiter 2 license plate on my other car. It always makes me smile when, while wearing one of my many Lost in Space t-shirts, a stranger responds and we spontaneously bond over how much we love this now 60-year-old television show. I'm not sure my reviews will add much to what has already been expressed by other fans about these episodes over the years. Nonetheless, my sensibilities are sometimes a bit unique, and I think it is both interesting and fun to share and consider how our perspectives differ. Though I love the episode Attack of the Monster Plants, there was one scene that always kind of bothered me and never made sense to me. But after hearing another fan's perspective on that scene, all of a sudden, it did make sense to me and really added to my appreciation of that episode. So hopefully, my thoughts and perspectives on these episodes broaden your own view of each, and that ultimately you find new enjoyment in each one of them. With that, let me close this video by recommending that you like and subscribe so that you don't miss each new installment as I create and post them one at a time. I hope you enjoy each one, and I welcome your comments as an open dialogue, capturing and sharing your own thoughts on each episode. Thanks for watching, and on to our first episode, The Reluctant Stowaway.